Live from CNN Atlanta, this is Connect the World.
Hello and welcome to what is this last year's edition of Connect the World. I'm Linda Kincaid, stepping in for Becky Anderson. Good to have you with us. Well, Australian authorities are warning people to stay out of danger zones as they hit the roads for Christmas, as the deadly fires there threaten major cities. Officials say at least 9 people have died since the blazes began in September, this week fueled by record-breaking heat waves. The danger level has been at its highest in days. 800 homes so far destroyed. And Sydney looks almost unrecognisable with the smoke from the fires on the outskirts of the city choking residents there. Officials say the air quality is so bad, breathing in is like smoking more than a pack of cigarettes a day. Well, the crisis even forced Prime Minister Morrison to cancel his Christmas holiday and return home early from Hawaii. Miley Hogan with CNN affiliate 7 News has more on the thousands of firefighters working to contain dozens of blazes.
This is what firefighters faced in Blackheath last night, staring down a wall of flames as it explodes from the Gross Valley.
Wow. Yep.
Crews forced to retreat as the inferno quickly reaches the house. In nearby Bilpin, similar scenes, a whirlwind of flames and thick smoke making visibility so poor, a firefighter was hit by a car.
I'm all right.
He was rushed back to his truck by colleagues.
I'm all right.
The Gospers Mountain mega blaze showing no mercy, taking Bilpin's Tutti Frutti Cafe. By morning, it was a smouldering mess. Crews on the ground calling this the Black Mountains. Fears 20 homes are lost. This is one home that did not stand a chance against yesterday's flames. Recovery crews are now moving through the fire-affected communities, but it could still be days before they know the full extent of the damage. But many more are still standing.
The roar was coming over the hill, just like a freight train, and the roar, the flames and the smoke, you just couldn't see a thing. Just can't thank them enough, you know.
Others defended their own homes.
The smoke was horrific. My eyes were burning. My sons were just wetting the house down.
In Dargan overnight, rows of homes burnt to the ground. One man was feared dead, but this morning he was found alive in an evacuation centre. Experienced crews still shocked by the conditions they faced.
Pretty horrendous, actually. I've had 39 years experience bushfire fighting, and that would probably go down as the worst day that I've ever seen.
Now communities throughout the mountains face a rebuilding operation, from homes to infrastructure. But the threat is far from over as the blaze continues to rage. Blackheath once again in the firing line today.
We have crown fire behind the houses. The situation is critical. Serious concerns for property loss over.
A reality the community will have to deal with for months. In Blackheath, Miley Hogan, 7 News.
With dozens of fires burning out of control, there is no relief right now. And this Christmas, many families are grieving the loss of loved ones and the loss of their homes. CNN's Simon Cullen brings us this report from Queensland's southeast, just above the border with New South Wales.
Well, Linda, as we've just heard, the death toll from this Australian bushfire crisis tragically rising to 9. That, of course, is 9 families that have been torn apart just days before Christmas. And nationally, the authorities are saying that 800 homes have been destroyed. That, of course, will make for a very sad Christmas as well. Now, where I'm standing at the moment is very close to the border of Queensland and New South Wales. These, of course, is 2 states that have been devastated by the bushfire emergency. And the smell of smoke is still relatively thick in the air, even though the fire, the nearest fire, is still several kilometres away. Further south, though, in New South Wales, that's where the bushfire emergency is most intense. That's where dozens of fires are still burning out of control. It's forced the closure of major roads. That, of course, is going to make holiday travel difficult for families as they head away for the Christmas break. Now, for the firefighters who are battling these blazes, there are thousands of them. Most of them are volunteers. They will be hoping that a cooler change that is coming through Australia at the moment will offer some relief, but the forecast is that it will only be temporary. More hot weather is expected in the coming days, and according to the New South Wales Fire Chief, he says that there is no significant rain forecast for his state until at least the end of January. So that means the hot, dry weather is likely to continue. And Linda, that means for the coming months, there are still several hot months of weather still to come, and Australia's bushfire crisis is still far from over. Linda?
Thanks to Simon Cullen there. Well, after a weekend of deadly protests, India's Prime Minister is blaming opposition parties for misleading the public. Narendra Modi held a massive rally Sunday, telling supporters that the country's new citizenship law is not anti-Muslim, despite the widespread criticism.
The Muslims who were born on Indian soil or whose ancestors are children of Mother India, brothers and sisters, they have nothing to do with the citizenship law or the National Register of Citizens. Neither Muslims are being sent to any detention centers, nor are there any detention centers. Brothers and sisters, this is a white lie.
Well, Jeffrey Gettleman is the New York Times South Asia Bureau Chief. He joins us now from Delhi. Good to have you with us.
Sure.
So Prime Minister Modi is accusing the opposition parties of inciting these protests, and he's continuing to defend this very controversial law.
Yeah, he's in a really tight spot. He's never faced anything like this before. He's an incredibly popular politician at most times. He's won this big election a few months ago, and he's probably the most powerful prime minister India has produced in decades. But for the first time, there's this massive uprising across the country at dozens of different places at the same time, with people very upset and viscerally upset and emotionally, emotional and passionate because they think that this new law that his government has passed is very discriminatory.
And it's interesting, Jeffrey, when you look at the turnout at these protests, they're people from all different faiths. They have turned deadly, 22 people now dead. What's it going to take, do you think, for Narendra Modi to rethink this law?
That's the big question. I think he's under a lot of pressure. At the same time, India is a majority Hindu country, and his policies that speak to this idea of a strong Hindu nation are very popular. So you're seeing images of big protests. Many people have been killed. It's a very divisive and turbulent time, but there's still a large chunk of the population solidly behind him. And we haven't seen these protests, hit millions and millions of people flooding into the street like the Arab Spring. It's not anything close to that scale. But it is growing. It's involving more people from different religions. It's not just students and left-leaning people. It's beginning to bring in more segments of society. And you get the sense, as that speech showed, that he's on the defensive. He now has to explain that this law that they passed isn't discriminatory when the law specifically says members of all these religions except Islam will be granted citizenship faster in India than Muslims would get.
Yeah, it really does fuel that criticism against him. In terms of the numbers of people turning out, because Modi obviously has faced protests in the past, how does it compare to other protests that have happened during his term?
These are the biggest protests by far that he's faced. We have tens of thousands of people protesting at the same time in different cities, each city, across every corner of this country, from the northeast to the west, to the south, to the center, to New Delhi, the capital where I am. This has never happened before. This hasn't happened in decades in India, to have this many people in different places protesting the same thing. But India still is a place with a strong police force, and it's not afraid to use its power. And so we've seen a pretty harsh response to these protests. A lot of people have been beaten up. Almost 24 people have been killed. Thousands of people have been arrested. And there's this kind of sweep that's happening in these areas where there are protests, where they're just picking up young men and throwing them in jail. So the signal is we got to, we got to stomp this out fast before it spreads. And his speech today was an attempt to calm the Muslim population down, that he wasn't against them. But many people believe he is, and that his party, which has this philosophy of really promoting Hinduism, is bent on marginalizing Muslims in India. And let's not forget that there are 200 million Muslims in India. It's one of the largest populations of Muslims anywhere in the world. But because India is so big, 1.3 billion people, they're a minority here. And now for the first time, they're speaking out.
Exactly, you make a good point. They are a minority there, but 200 million people, that's a lot of people angry about this law. All right, good to have you with us, Jeffrey Gettleman from the New York Times. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Well, still to come, all over the world, activists have joined together to raise awareness of the impending dangers of the climate crisis. But is anyone listening? We're going to have a 2019 wrap-up of the global climate crisis next. Also, after months of uncertainty and tedious ballot counting, Afghanistan's election results are almost in. We're going to have a live update. Plus, Lebanon's new prime minister has a very tough job ahead. His first task? Forming a new government. We'll look at the challenges he's facing when we come back. Stay with us.